When DJI released the Action 6, they didn't release it as the Action 6 Pro, just the Action 6, unlike the Action 5 Pro. So essentially, we're not pros anymore. We're just normal people. Well, today, we're fighting back and saying, DJI, we are not normal people. We are pros. When shooting in 8K on the Action 6, let's be honest, it uses a lot of battery. And if you're out and you don't have a load of spare batteries, well, cry no more. Grab your phone, plug it into the Action 6, and your phone can act as a power bank to the Action 6. You cannot open the aperture up to f2 on the Action 6 unless you're in super night mode or you have the macro lens attached. When you're in auto mode, the most you can open the eyeball up is to f2.8. But let's say you want to open it up further, but you don't want to go into super night mode and you don't have the macro lens. Well, go into pro mode, because when you're in pro mode, you have the option to open the eyeball up to f2.6. Be careful when shooting in f2.6, because in f2.6 the minimum focus distance is 40 centimeters. So if you are out vlogging like this, your face could start to look a little bit fuzzy. So a little bit fuzzy, a little bit blurry, a little bit blurry. So where you can, always try to make sure you're in f4, because in f4 the minimum focus distance is 20 centimeters, which is half of 40 centimeters. Wow, I can still do maths. But in f4, the issue with f4 is obviously you're closing the eyeball down. So you need to make sure you have enough light to be in f4, because if you don't, then instead of your face being fuzzy, everything's just going to be dark. When shooting in auto with the variable aperture, obviously the variable aperture is changing, which also means the minimum focus distance is changing. So if you're out vlogging like this, you don't really want the minimum focus distance changing all the time, because it's just another number you need to keep an eye on. So in a vlog situation especially, make sure you have the aperture fixed instead of putting it in auto, because yeah, you don't want to keep thinking about... I mean, it doesn't change that often anyway, to be honest with you. But when it does change, you just, yeah, it's good to not have it change. If you're planning on shooting in 8K, there's a couple of things you need to check. First of all, you have enough space in your SD card and camera, and you have enough space in your computer. 1 minute of 8K footage takes up about 1 gigabyte versus 1 minute of 4K footage, just over 300 megabytes. Quite a big difference, so make sure you have some space, and also make sure your computer can handle editing 8K footage. I have the M4 MacBook Pro, and even that, about 3-4 minutes into the timeline, starts to get laggy. So don't just go out without testing things out and shoot hundreds of hours of 8K footage and get back and you're like, oh shit. Do some tests first. When shooting in 8K on Mr. Action 6 for long periods of time, he just doesn't like it. And what I mean by that is I've done various tests shooting in 8K for long periods of time, and I've had this message come up: SD card writing speed slow, even though I have the correct SD card installed inside Mr. Action 6. He then actually freezes up to the point where nothing is responding, the screen is not responding, no buttons are responding. If that happens to you, the only way out is to remove the battery. But when you remove the battery, whatever you've just started to record before he froze up is going to be lost. So yeah, I'm sorry, that shit gone. But when you get him back on, instead of recording to the SD card, record internally, because I found in all of the tests that I've done, whenever I'm recording 8K footage, I never have an issue recording internally versus recording to an SD card, and he starts to freeze up. So I would prioritize your internal storage for 8K shooting. When shooting in 8K in lower light conditions, I have found that when you press record, there is a slight color shift for the first 2 seconds. So my advice is, if you are shooting in 8K in lower light conditions, press record, wait a few seconds, and then start speaking or do whatever it is you're doing, because you don't want that color shift being visible in your actual final recording. Try not to shoot in 8K in very low light conditions, because shooting in 8K uses many smaller pixels and each pixel collects less light, which means you'll have to increase the ISO to get a decent picture, and increasing the ISO introduces noise. So actually you're going to get better image quality in low light shooting in 4K versus 8K. If you want to transfer the actual 8K video files from the Mimo app to your phone, then download the files direct from the album screen and not the editor screen. If you download them from the editor screen, they're going to download as 4K videos versus 8K videos from the album screen. Oh, nearly. I'm going to do it at least once a day. I'm going to slide, but it's just not slippy enough yet. Anyway, when you're in 1:1 mode and the grid is off, there is a tiny, teeny crop versus when you have the grid on, you're getting the full image. So turn the grid on to get the full image. Don't worry, you won't have the grid appearing in your final shot. The grid is just there for a guidance. But yeah, to not get the teeny tiny crop, have the grid on. When you update your firmware, double check your texture and noise settings, because when I updated my firmware, the texture and noise went back to 0 and actually quality priority turned off. So those 3 settings changed, nothing else did. But yeah, if you update your firmware, just double check settings that you've set before haven't changed. For some reason, the DJI elves are not being as nice as they once was. They're making us work. They're making us hunt. What I mean by that is, once upon a time, when a firmware update was available, we used to get a message at the top of the Mimo screen saying, new firmware update available. We don't really get that anymore. We've got to work for it. If you do not see the firmware update message at the top of the screen, but you're seeing all online that there's a new firmware update available, then when you're in the Mimo app, go onto the profile tab at the bottom right, then go to about, and then click on check for firmware updates. That will check for the latest firmware update. If there is one, it will then show you it and you can download and install it. If there's not, then obviously you'll just get a message that says you are fully up to date. So thank you, DJI elves, for nothing. Absolutely nothing. When you are downloading a new firmware update and when you are downloading a new firmware update and when you are downloading a firmware update and things seem to be taking too long, well, that means that you actually need to update the Mimo app. So update the Mimo app and then start the download of the firmware update again, and everything should be a lot smoother. When you're in any of the menu screens, instead of pressing the arrow loads of times to take you back to the preview screen, just literally press the on-off button once, and that will take you directly back to the preview screen. This is a good shot, isn't it? Oh, no, the bin. Move the bin out of the shot. This is... Oh, the bin's still in the shot. That's how wide he is. Oh, there you go. This is a good shot, isn't it? And guess what? Action 6 isn't mounted with anything. He's literally on his own, stuck to the fridge. And that is because underneath his... Well, on his bottom... It literally is his bottom. On his bottom... On his ass, it's magnetic, so you can stick it to things like a fridge. So you'd probably benefit this, like if you're out and about and there's like a pole somewhere, or you know, a ledge, I don't know, that's magnetic, that you could just put him on and get a shot with his ass. Gesture control can be great, but also very annoying. The issue with gesture control is sometimes it can be a little bit too sensitive. So you might wave your hand for it to start recording, and then if you're like me, you use your hands a lot in your video, and then it thinks you're telling it to stop recording. Well, a new feature has been added. So instead of you just being able to set it as start and stop a recording, you can now literally set it to start recording only. So if you use your hands a lot in your videos like I do and you wave them around, just set gesture control to start recording only rather than start and stop recording. To access the different shooting modes, you don't need to actually press the shooting modes button in the bottom left of the screen. You can just swipe left or right in the middle of the preview screen, and that will flick you through the different shooting modes. You also don't need to swipe directly from the top or bottom of the screen to access the other menus. You can just swipe down or up in the middle of the preview screen, and the other menus will appear. If you're trying to access the gain control in Mr. Action 6 because you have a wireless DJI mic connected, but you can't find it, well, that's because you need to be in pro mode. Remember, we are not normal people, we are pros. Once you're in pro mode, click on the little microphone icon at the top, and there you've got loads of different options. One of them is your gain control. If you're trying to activate or deactivate the 2x lossless zoom whilst you're recording and it's not working, well, that's because you can't do it. You need to activate or deactivate it before you press record. But activating it and deactivating it is a little bit fiddly because the icon is so small in the bottom right of the screen. To make your life easier, swipe down anywhere on the preview screen and go to your quick switch button settings. Here you're able to select zoom as one of the options. Select zoom, and then when you press the quick switch on the side of the camera, it activates the 2x lossless zoom, and when you press it again, it deactivates the zoom. But remember, you have to do that before you press record. Okay, this is a chunky one. Pens and papers at the ready. With Mr. Action 6 comes a load of restrictions. When you're in that mode, you can't do that. When you're in that mode and you turn on that, you can do that, but you can't do that if you do that. Well, guess what? I did all of that and wrote down a whole list of all of the restrictions I could possibly find by turning on that and turning off that. Hopefully I haven't missed any. If I haven't, you know some more, then obviously let us know down below. I tried to remember them, but mate, there's no way I could remember all of these, so I'm going to read them off my phone. Are you ready? Right. You can't shoot in 1x1 mode whilst in super night mode. You can't activate or deactivate the lossless zoom whilst recording. You can't use the lossless zoom whilst in portrait, super night or subject tracking mode. You can't shoot in 1x1 whilst in portrait, super night or subject tracking mode. Quality priority is not available in 1x1 portrait, super night or subject tracking mode. You can't use the film tones whilst in 1x1 portrait, super night or subject tracking mode, or you're shooting in 8K. You can no longer see the screen brightness percentage, or you can't set it as a shortcut. You can't use gesture control in portrait or super night mode. You can't set the front screen to full screen preview in subject tracking mode. You can't shoot in 8K whilst in 1x1 mode. When shooting with the macro lens attached, you can't have focus peaking on when you're shooting in D-Log-M. The only field of views available when the macro lens is attached are D-Warp and wide, and rock steady is the only stabilization option. No rock steady plus or horizon balancing or steady. Focus peaking is only available on the rear screen when the macro lens is connected. 8K, in 8K you can only shoot up to 30 frames per second, and when shooting in 8K, wide is the max field of view, so no ultra wide, and also no horizon balancing or steady. You're welcome. When the macro lens is attached to Mr. Action 6, he's no longer waterproof. So whatever you do, do not go underwater when you have the macro lens attached. We are probably removing the actual lens guard on Action 6 more than we were doing on Action 5 Pro because of the new macro lens situation, which means the actual lens, like the actual lens is a lot more exposed than it was, let's say, on the Action 5 Pro. And when it's exposed, dust and, what's the word I'm looking for? Particles? Is particles the word? Particles, I think it's the first time I've used that. Particles can get on the lens, which then when you're filming, yeah, just makes everything look bad, especially in sunlight. You start to see all these weird bits. So make sure nothing gets on the main lens, and if it does, do not use a tissue to wipe it, because if you use a tissue to wipe it, you're just going to be adding like white bits to the main lens, which as well don't look good. So use an actual cloth like this, a cloth. This cloth. This comes with the FREEWELL NDs. I'll link them down below. This is much better to wipe the lens than using a tissue, because it doesn't transfer any bits. If you're going underwater with Action 6, especially at the beach, then make sure that the lens guard is screwed on properly. I put the camera under the water at the beach the other week, and the lens thing wasn't entirely screwed on properly. I've kept it because I didn't want to clean it, because I wanted to show you in this video. Look, there's bits of sand. Can you see it? like around, not on the lens, but like around. Look, sand got in. It's because the thingy wasn't screwed. The lens guard wasn't screwed properly. Look, you can even see the sand bits. I've kept it for this moment to show you what not to do. Luckily, it wasn't loose enough to let any like water through. But yeah, it could have gone horribly wrong. So whenever you're going underwater, even if it's not at the beach, make sure that this lens guard is screwed on the tightest it can be screwed on and there's no gap. Whilst you're recording, if you want to change the screen display time, swipe down from anywhere on the screen and you'll see the little, what is it? It's like a little thing that pops up. I don't even know what the word is for it. It's a little timer thing. Anyway, little line. You can, move your fingers along to set it from 3 seconds all the way up to never turning off. Okay, so I've been doing some battery testing. DJI say you can get 4 hours of battery life, but those tests are in 1080p. Maybe 2026 is the year they start doing their tests in at least 4K or maybe 8K on an 8K camera. Anyway, I've done the 4K and 8K tests, and in 4K at 25 frames per second, I got 2 hours, 21 minutes. In 8K at 25 frames per second, I got 1 hour, 33 minutes, which is obviously a massive difference from the 4 hours. So my advice to you, if you haven't got Action 6 yet, and you're just watching this video to prepare yourself, spend the extra money and get the Adventure Combo, which includes 3 batteries in a charging case, especially if you're planning to do a lot of 8K shooting, because mate, 1 hour 33 is not going to see you through the whole day. Are you the type of person that likes to shoot a continuous mega movie? Well, you can do that with Action 6, as long as you have enough battery, but what was I saying? The thing to know is the file does split when shooting in 4K at 25 minutes, when shooting in 8K at 20 minutes. One of the new additions on the Action 6 is film tones. Now, usually I wouldn't even bother talking about film tones, filters, whatever it is on these cameras, because I usually don't like them. But I've got to say, film tones do look pretty sick on Action 6 if you use them correctly. The thing is, on this mini screen, pretty much anything looks great, right? You could just literally film your foot, right? You could just film your foot and your foot would look like the best foot in the world on this mini screen. So what I'm trying to say is the good thing with the film tones is you can change the intensity. So if you put the intensity to 100 on the mini screen, it actually sometimes does look good. But when you watch that back on your laptop screen, which is obviously a bigger screen, it actually doesn't look that good. So I personally wouldn't go above 50% on the intensity. What I'm saying is do your tests first if you haven't used the film tones, because you don't just want to whack it in, whatever it is, you whack it in like 100% and then it looks good here and then you watch it back there and you're like, oh shit, because mate, you're stuck. It's not recoverable because the film tones are baked into the footage. And also some of the film tones can make the faces look a little bit weird with the color, especially the higher you go with the intensity. So please, please, please do your tests first with the film tones and the intensities before you actually get out and shoot like properly. Okay, can you hear anything that, well, first of all, can you hear anything? I was going to say, can you hear anything that sounds weird? But look, okay, let's not waste any time. Of course you can. Like, this whole thing just sounds stupid. Why? Because I've got an earbud connected and I'm using it as a microphone. So my tip to you is do not use your earbuds as a microphone, because if you do, you're going to sound like this. And mate, who wants to sound like this? Instead, use a DJI wireless mic as a microphone if you really want to use a wireless mic. Because when you use a wireless mic like this, you sound a lot better than you did with an earbud in your ear using that as a mic. And the good thing with a wireless DJI mic like this, when you're using, I don't know, mic mini, mic 3, is you can control the camera from the microphone, so you can press the link button to start or stop a recording like this. The other thing that's going to make you sound a little bit weird, maybe as weird as if you had a earbud connected as a wireless mic. In fact, actually, no, I don't think anything makes you sound as bad as that. But this still does make you sound bad. And that is if you go underwater with Action 6 and you come out of the water and you start speaking to the microphone, speaking to the camera straight away, the microphones are filled with water. So you're going to sound like you are still underwater. So depending on how hot it is where you are, you're going to have to wait, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes for the microphone to dry out. One of the great new additions on Mr. Action 6 is the new mic setup, meaning when you're speaking in front of the camera you sound great, and when you're speaking behind the camera you sound great. Well, that is until you activate wind reduction. When you activate wind reduction like I have now, and you're speaking behind the camera, things obviously are not sounding as good as they did before. So especially if you were in a louder environment, things would sound even worse. So make sure when you do have wind reduction activated that when you're speaking behind the camera you actually come closer to the camera, like closer to the microphone, so you are able to be heard better, or else you're just going to sound, well, not good. Which links in nicely with our next point. As I said, one of the great new additions to Mr. Action 6 is the new mic setup on top of the camera. So when you are speaking behind the camera, things sound a lot better than they did on Mr. Action 5 Pro. The issue is if you're holding the camera like I am, not attached to anything, when you move the when you move the camera around, your fingers and your hands, or just your hands, your hands are your fingers, well, they're at risk of crossing over the microphone because the microphone's on top of the camera. So if you are in a setup like that, be careful that you're not crossing over the microphone on top of the camera every time you're moving the camera, because yeah, people don't really want to hear that. If you want the DJI Action 6 sticker on your footage like I have right now on mine, then you need to connect to the Mimo app, go to Editor, go to New Project, select the video you want to add the sticker to, select Sticker, DJI, and then choose the sticker you want, and you can place it wherever you want on your clip. The low resolution files that come with each video file when you shoot a video file on the Action 6, if you delete those low resolution files, you can still play and edit the videos on your computer fine, no issues. But if you try to play the clip back on the Action 6, you won't be able to. And when you try to play it through the Mimo app, it will be laggy until you download it. So where you can, keep those low resolution files exactly where they are, unless you need to clear them down because you're really tight on space. The two side flaps on Mr. Action 6 are removable, so literally open the flap and then gently pull. He says, there you go. Gently pull. Oh, start recording. Gently pull the flaps off. But you could do that on both sides. But keep in mind when the flaps are off, the camera is no longer waterproof. So this is great if you want to put, I don't know, accessories like receivers, power banks, or whatever in. But just keep in mind when the flaps are off, yeah, no water can get in. Well, it can, but if it does, it's not good. And if you do attach any accessories like a receiver, make sure it's facing backwards and not forwards like this, because when you're shooting with it facing forwards, especially when you've got a really wide field of view, you'll be able to see it in the corner of the screen keep popping up, especially when you move the camera left and right. So have the receiver facing behind rather than in front like this. If you never ever want to miss a moment, then you need to turn snapshot on, because when snapshot is on and Action 6 is off and you press the record button, Action 6 literally starts recording instantly, so you never ever miss a moment. To access the snapshot settings, just swipe down anywhere on the preview screen, go to settings, and then at the top you'll see snapshot. Here you're able to choose the shooting mode, so choose how the snapshot will behave once you press record. If you shoot a shot, if you shoot a video, if you shoot a clip, if you shot a 120 frames per second clip for that super slow-mo stuff, when you preview the clip back on Action 6, it's not in slow motion. But when you're previewing it back, you'll see next to the pause and play button, there's a snail button. If you press the snail button, it will generate the super slow motion video clip. You now have 2 video clips, the original clip that's not super slow motion and the slow motion clip that is slow motion. Because you can record directly internally and direct to SD card with Action 6, when you plug him into your computer or a laptop, you'll have 2 removal discs, Osmo Action and your SD card, usually called Untitled unless you've renamed it. So make sure you select the right one when you're trying to find your footage based on where you've saved your footage to. Because if you're flicking through one and you can't find your footage, chances are it's saved on the other removal disc. So yeah, don't think it's the end of the world. Just remember to check both removal discs. So if you want to turn the front screen off on Action 6, you can obviously swipe down anywhere on the preview screen, go to settings, and then single screen preview, turn that on, and it takes off the preview. But the issue is you then might get this, which is your shooting information, which is what you don't want because you want the screen to be off. If that's the case, you need to scroll down in the settings menu further and go to always on display. Here you'll see display in single screen preview, and you need to turn that off. Once you turn that off, the front screen completely goes off. Let's be honest, there are a lot of different variations in terms of settings you can use shooting with Action 6. 1 minute you're in 4K 1:1, the next minute you're in 8K. You might be the type of person that switches between various different variations based on where you are and what you're shooting. So instead of changing settings all the time, save yourself some time and save those settings into a custom profile. So you don't have to flick between settings, you just flick between custom profiles. Once you have all of your settings set, swipe down anywhere on the preview screen and press the icon in the top left, which is the custom profiles button. Go to the plus icon, press that, and then press confirm. That saves your custom profile. Do the same by changing your settings again and then go into that custom profiles menu and save that as a custom profile. To access your custom profiles, you don't go back into the custom profiles menu though, because your custom profiles have been added to the shooting modes menu. So you literally can swipe left or right anywhere on the preview screen, go to the very beginning, and you'll see there are your custom profiles. Just press on whichever one you want, and yeah, it will set all the settings that you have set. You can set up to 5 custom profiles at any one time. So if you want to override one, just go back into the custom profiles menu. You can see in the top right, there's like a bin. Just go over whichever custom profile you want to bin, and then another one will be available for you to save another set of settings to. If you want to lock the white balance in place, but you're not sure what to set it at, do not stress. Go into white balance, make sure it's in auto white balance, hold the Action 6 up facing whatever it is you're trying to film, wait for the number on the left to stop. When it does, press the M button and then the tick. That will lock the correct white balance in place. But remember, when you change scene, you need to change the white balance, because if you don't and your scene changes drastically, let's say from light to dark, and you don't change it, things are going to look pretty weird. The floor's just not slippy enough. And there you have it. We have gone from normal people to pros. We fighted back. We fought back. We've got the title back, unofficially. But we've got it in our heads.